It is tech. Oh boy, I'm off to a bad start. I can't. Let's start over. Hi, everybody. It is Tech Month. Wowza. Okay, Tech Month, all month long still. And today we are talking about what tech has to do with landing contracts and saving money as a business owner and all these amazing, beautiful, wonderful things that you wouldn't think would have anything to do with tech or cybersecurity in particular, but they do. I recently learned that if you want to get these big money giant DoD contracts, like these legit, they're groundbreakers, like these are the kind of contracts that really open up things for your business enduringly. If you want those, you have to check a lot of boxes. It's not just you put in a bid and if it's the best thing for the least money, you get the job. Like, you have to check a lot of boxes, and a lot of those boxes have to do with cybersecurity compliance. Like, the DoD isn't going to do business with you or hire you to contract anything or to provide products or services for them if you are a vulnerability or a liability, or if you are going to make them or their assets or their people or their processes vulnerable to an attack of some kind. If it opens up a cybersecurity vulnerability, you're not going to get the contract. So they have to make sure that you check a lot of these boxes. I didn't know that. And I also didn't know that a lot of insurance companies are not going to insure your business in various ways if you are not at least minimally cybersecurity compliant. And if you don't check a lot of those boxes, you may pay higher premiums with less coverage. That's not cool. So not only should you have your cybersecurity world kind of in order, I've learned in the last week and excited to learn more, because obviously it's the safe thing to do to safeguard your company and your assets and your family, your personal assets. But also, if you want to save money and get better coverage through your insurance premiums and potentially be compliant for state or federal contracts, you got to have your cybersecurity ducks in a row, folks. It's true. I didn't know that, and I'm really interested to learn more. Scott Singer is the president, the head guy, the CEO of CyberNINES, and they're a company that specializes in cybersecurity compliance. And they specialize in helping businesses benefit, become eligible for contracts, save money, benefit in a myriad of ways from having their cybersecurity ducks in a row, from being compliant. So it may not sound like cybersecurity and cybersecurity compliance in particular is the sexiest thing in the world, but you know what? It is. And it's way sexier than paying higher insurance premiums and getting less coverage. There are few things less sexy than high insurance premiums. Yikes. Folks, excited to get into this with Scott from CyberNINES right after this video. Excellent. Again, our very loud pump up video. Folks, if you are watching, doesn't matter what you're watching through. If you're watching this on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, if you're the one person who watches us on Twitter, if you're watching us on a tube TV somewhere that's getting the signal somehow by a rabbit ear antenna, okay, you're probably not going to be able to comment, but welcome. But if you're watching through any of those other things, drop us a comment, say hello, and also ask us any questions. If you have, we probably don't ask me about cybersecurity. That's why we have the subject matter expert here, but ask questions as they pop up. Like, I love when we have opportunities to field questions while we're presenting. But in the meantime, very happy to introduce our friend, Scott Singer of CyberNINES. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So, okay, we'll cut right to the cybersecurity being a sexy thing. That we were talking about that before the show. Cybersecurity compliance. What brought you to cybersecurity compliance? Were you growing up and you were like, when I grow up, I'm going to be I'm going to work on cybersecurity compliance. What brought you there?
Wow. I don't even know how to answer that question because it's such a long journey to get to the place where I got to now. So I've got a 50-page PowerPoint presentation, Adam, that I thought I'd bring up and kind of talk through that journey with you. Will that work?
Rob,
No,
okay, good. I was like,
I'm kidding.
I thought you were serious at first. It's like, I really don't know how to handle this situation right now.
No, so I was 30 years in the Navy. I had a couple jobs in the Navy where one job I was the executive officer for a reserve cybersecurity unit in Pacific Fleet. That was really interesting, got me interested in it. But most of my career has been in IT. And I spent 16 years with Medtronic, a medical device company around IT. And, when we started, it really wasn't a massive thing. Just getting hacked and cybersecurity wasn't an issue because it wasn't kind of a sexy place to be, I guess, at some point. Now it's a way to make money and for the bad guys. And so over time, I've just gotten really interested in it. The last 10 years, I worked for a defense contractor, and I just saw the regulations growing and growing and companies getting hit. Our company got hit really bad from an attack from a certain other country that wanted all of our stuff on how to build aircraft carrier elevators to take planes up to the flight deck. And so that really got to me, to be honest with you. And that's really where this started. So that's kind of how I got to this place. And then after I left my last company about a year and a half ago, started CyberNINES with a company in town called 5 Nines. We joined forces and started CyberNINES, and we've been pretty busy since then.
I believe it. Are we, as business owners or as individuals who use the internet, are we in more danger now than ever before?
That's a good question. I think it goes up and down. I think there's a lot more people understand what happens when you click on an email these days. Everybody's aware of phishing emails, and probably that email from the Nigerian prince really isn't going to get you anymore.
Right.
However, the emails have gotten much better too, and they're harder to tell whether it's a spoofing email or not. And so I would say it's kind of been it's a growing business, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's actually ransomware as a service. I don't know if people have heard software as a service or things like that.
Ransomware as a service?
There is a whole market out there for ransomware as a service. So you don't have to be a brainiac these days to really make money with ransomware. You can actually rent it, and the people you're renting from gets the money, and the person doing the attack gets the money. So it's a big problem.
That's crazy. So let's say I live in rural Idaho and I have a satellite internet connection. I've got a small business. Do I have to worry about a cyber attack? It couldn't possibly happen to me, right?
I actually think they're more susceptible in a lot of ways to getting hit with a ransomware attack. There's different approaches. There's the spray and pray kind of attacks that just go out and anybody, lots of people get the messages and they get hit. And then all of a sudden your screen, your computer a screen comes up saying, please pay this $10,000 Bitcoin to this address, or we're going to delete all your data. That happens all the time. And, so those small businesses, the best thing you can do is back up your data. And even if it's as simple as using a USB drive key and a mobile storage device, plug it into your computer, once a week, every other day, however, you have to sort of think about how long can I be, dead in the water without my data? Can I go 2 days, 3 days, 4 days? It depends on your business model. So if you're taking lots of transactions, you need lots of backups, right?
Right.
But if you're taking like an order a day or an order every few days, then you don't have to back up your data as fast. But back it up. And then the thing is, don't leave your backup connected to your computer. Because if you get hit by a ransomware attack, it's going to crawl right up that backup.
Interesting. My backup is always plugged in. That's probably a bad idea. Probably a bad idea. I will rectify that right after this. So you work with folks on shoring up their cybersecurity, specifically, obviously for their personal, their business safety, but so they can be compliant. And being compliant, having your ducks in a row from a cybersecurity standpoint, so to speak, there's actually potential financial benefits to that. And we'll talk about, contracting in a minute, but you mentioned insurance as well. Can you touch on that for a bit?
Sure. And this comes back to the number of ransomware attacks that have hit. Insurance companies have gotten better at understanding how to underwrite policies and the risk involved with underwriting these policies. And they don't want to take on the risk when companies don't have those good backups. They aren't using multi-factor authentication. When you get that code back on your phone that says, put this number into this program, that's multi-factor authentication. And so if you're not using tools like that, they don't want to insure you. And so there's companies that are just not getting cybersecurity insurance anymore because they haven't completed these items.
Interesting. So now the insurance companies know if you're shored up, and if you're not, if you could be a liability, they're either going to charge you through the nose for less coverage or just not cover you at all.
Correct.
How does someone then become minimally compliant? I mean, let's say I'm a business owner. I'm that same business owner in rural Idaho. I have McAfee, virus protection on my computer. Is that enough?
No, it's not going to be enough. The first thing that's going to happen is that when you go try and get an insurance policy for your company, and keep in mind, a lot of these mom and pop businesses that you kind of started with here, they don't necessarily think about even getting a cybersecurity policy. Okay, tends to be more of the larger to mid-sized businesses that even do this. However, you're going to get a form that is the insurance company is going to send you a form when you ask to get some insurance policy, and it's going to have some requirements on it. Right. And the key thing is not to just fill out that form and say, yeah, we're doing all that stuff. No, that's not the right place to go. The place to go is most of these companies are also going to be using a managed service provider. And that's the place to start. Go to your managed service provider with your form, or obviously you can come to a company like CyberNINES too. But, get some help with it. Okay. And, it's going to cost you a little money to walk through these things, but the real basic cyber hygiene items that we're talking about here, it's that multi-factor authentication, it's backups, it's complex passwords, it's changing passwords. It's just things that you should be doing, blocking and tackling your cybersecurity hygiene. And, but that external provider, that company that you're using to help with your IT, they can help you figure out how to, fill that form out, and it shouldn't be very expensive.
So it's not arduous and like prohibitively expensive to just make sure that you're protected, and people probably should do it anyways, regardless of what size business you have.
Of course. And a couple of things I didn't talk about, but it's things like virus software, firewalls, keeping all those things current, right? It's when you get that request to update your desktop, whether it's Windows 10 or Windows 11, you got to do it. You got to keep all those things current.
Right. Make sure you got all your OS updates so you're not vulnerable to an attack. And do you need a dedicated IT person on staff to be constantly on the lookout? I mean, if you have a medium or larger size business, I mean, you have to have folks on staff, right?
No, again, the model really is going to outsourcing. There
Mm.
really is a lot. I mean, as the companies get bigger, you see more people on site. I mean, we've worked with a lot of companies, and we really don't see on-site IT people till you start getting into companies that are like above 100 people,
Mm.
60, 70, 100, 60, 70 people. Then we start seeing regular on-site staff. So there really are a lot of companies that are using these outsourced IT companies to do that work. So,
Interesting. Let's talk about contracting. So for
mhm.
we talk all the time about getting veteran-owned businesses, getting them obviously certified as veteran-owned or service-connected, disabled veteran-owned businesses, getting them into diverse supply chain pipelines, getting them into state and federal government contracting pipelines so they can land those lucrative opportunities to provide their services or their products to the Department of Defense, to the state, to the corporate entities. Um, and I know that there are things, obviously, you have to be able to provide the service that they need at the cost that is, the most cost effective for them. But I hadn't considered the compliance end of things. Is that relatively new, at least from a federal standpoint, to get those contracts?
No, it's not. The requirement for being compliant goes for DoD contractors goes back to late 2013.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not a new requirement. What's changing is that the DoD has found that, well, look, there's 300,000 companies in the defense industrial base supply chain. There's about 80,000 companies in the supply chain that handle very sensitive information called controlled unclassified information. Some people might know of it as like ITAR, for example, as a term, an export controlled term. So this is information the DoD doesn't want to lose. Okay, it's not something like classified like a missile system, but it's one level down from that. Remember, I was talking about that aircraft carrier, that that flight deck that would, the elevator that would take the aircraft up to the flight deck. That's considered ITAR. So it's
Hmm.
not classified, confidential, secret, or top secret. It's ITAR. It's controlled unclassified information. And if the enemy gets that information, it's going to help their program quite a bit, right? It's going to be easier for them to build an aircraft carrier if they've got
Right.
that, right? It's not a missile, but it's still important. The Joint Strike Fighter, what happened with it? Um, Lockheed Martin got hacked. We were one of the companies that got hacked from the Lockheed Martin
Mm.
hack. Well, what happens is now you've got basically all these small businesses, all these suppliers, they're making a part. They're making a part for the landing gear. They're making a part for the wing. There's all kinds of stuff, right?
Right.
But they're making one little part. One company might just be coding something, right? Lots of coding companies out there. So what happens is you have to share these drawings with these companies. These drawings get to all these different companies. And if they get hacked, it's easier to hack these small businesses than to attack one of these large prime contractors. And so they aggregate, right? They take all these different drawings, put them together, and now together it's classified at a much higher level and it helps them get things done. So if you look at the Chinese strike fighter, it looks a lot like our Joint Strike Fighter. Okay, and there's a reason for that.
So
So
they
hence
just they
that's where
just
these regulations came from.
stole our intellectual property and pieced it together and made their own Franken fighter jet.
They did. Looks a lot similar to ours. And
Good gravy. That makes I don't know. I can't explain why that makes me so mad, but I'm like angry.
well, and that's the reason that's the real reason I'm sitting here right now doing what I do, because it really did make me mad.
No, I believe it. We had a quick question from Jason over on Facebook. Said, how does one get veteran-owned certified? And I posted this link, business.defense.gov. What you're looking for is the SDVOSB Service Connected Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business Certification. That FAQ has a step-by-step guide. Not easy to get. Obviously, it's kind of a drawn out process. Well, it's simple, it's not easy, but it may take you a minute, but it's worth it because it does give you priority in certain scenarios. Thank you for asking that question, Jason. I appreciate it. So Scott, how often do you deal with active attacks, or is it more like you create a barrier that just makes a hacker like walk by the fortress and they're like, I'm not even going to try to storm that castle, they're taken care of?
Sure, there's at least path of resistance kind of thing there. We are more of a preventative company. We do some incident response post, when something happens, but there are a lot of companies that are better at that than we are. We're much more of upfront. Let's put a program in place to protect this business. Let's put a program in place that meets the DoD's requirements. Remember, I said it started back in 2013. Well, they're ratcheting down these requirements because what they found was all these companies weren't as secure as they should be. And so it's moving from a model of self attestation where companies just say, yeah, we're good, we're meeting the requirement, to the DoD is saying, trust but verify. Okay, we're going to have a third party assessor come in and say that you are doing okay. That's where this is moving. And right now, that's going to be in place in 2023, probably October 1 timeframe, where you have to have all these requirements done and ready to go. So that's what we're working on. We're trying to move these companies along, put a program in place, prevent them from storming the castle.
Right. So the goal is to create a massive titanium castle with a moat that's filled with alligators and, motion activated laser guided Gatling guns. Like you just want to, no, not so much.
No,
just
because
you have either your door's locked or it's not.
There are too many new threats happening all the time. Okay. You can't foresee everything that's going to hit you. So you have to have these good processes in place to react to it when it does happen, right? So you get hit by a ransomware attack, and ransomware attacks move laterally across your organization. So if you can catch it early, right, and quarantine that machine, then it won't move to all the other machines and go into your server and go into your backup.
So if a ransomware attack hits, let's say we got 5 people in a business on a
lost
network.
Your audio, Adam.
Oh, we lost my audio. Can you hear me now?
Nope.
That's awfully strange. Stand by. Huh. Folks, if you're watching, let me know if you can hear me.
Oh, got you.
Got you back? Oh, that was strange.
I don't know. The vagaries of the internet.
Yeah. So let's say I am one of 5 people on a network in a business and I get hit with a ransomware attack and we're able to quarantine to that one computer. Is everything on that computer just done for? Do you just like accept the loss and move on? Or is there some way to stop it in process? I'm not really familiar with it at all.
So if the machine is hit and it's ransomed, there's going to be a request for you to pay to get the machine back, right? So ideally, a specific machine, we do not want the data stored that's really important for that company on that machine. We want it to be in a secure cloud or a secure server. That's where the data should be working. And that machine is a tool to access it and run things, right? So if that machine goes down, you don't want it to be the issue. Now, reality is people put a lot of files on their local machine and it's going to be an issue, right? So what do? Do you pay the ransom? Do you not pay the ransom? Hopefully you have backups. And again, it's easier to back up data on a cloud or a server than it is to back up 5 computers, right? You only have to back up in one place versus backing up in 5 places. But if you don't have a backup, then you have to make a business decision about whether you want to pay a ransom or not. And there's really kind of an unknown issue here, is that it may be illegal to pay the ransom because the government has what's called an entity list, a denied parties list, and that company, the ransomware company, because they are companies, they're people and companies.
Yeah.
They could be on the government's list that says you can't do trade, interact with this company. So here you go and you pay the ransom, right? And now you get in trouble because they're on this no-fly zone list, right?
Yikes. That's a double whammy. So not only are you victim of a ransomware attack, but you won't be able to fulfill the terms of your contract or get a contract ever again. That's insane. That's probably the most mind-blowing part of this whole thing. I had no idea that I guess I had no idea that it was so pervasive. So my next question is, a lot of people have resistance to cloud storage. They think not storing locally is inherently less safe. And they hear stories about celebrities getting their iCloud photos hacked and, getting sent out by paparazzi or whatever. But from what you're saying is, in a secure, high-tech, like well-managed cloud storage environment, that is safer than storing things locally?
Yes, I started in this place where everything what we call is on premise. You store it local. So if you hear that term on-prem, that's what that means instead of in the cloud. You have to always remember, all the cloud is a computer someplace else.
Right.
Okay. But it's still a computer. What makes the clouds better today than in the past is that they do have whole security teams working to help make these places secure. Now, it's a joint effort, right? Because if you have a real weak password to get into your email in Microsoft 365 in the cloud, right? Well, it's still a threat, right? So you've got to do your part and they need to do their part. And together you can make a much more secure environment to work.
So what would you say to somebody who's resistant, especially like my generation and older, usually like, well, we have our data files, we store them on our computer. I don't want to put them in somebody else's hands. I don't care if they have a whole army of people protecting them. How would you make someone, let's say I have a family member who I want to store their photos on the cloud so it doesn't take up 170 gig on their computer. How do I get them over that hump and let them know it's more secure?
Yeah, no, it's a good question because if you can do some things like I talked about before about, the USB drive and kind of like disconnecting it, and you can create a pretty safe environment for yourself. It doesn't scale very well. Okay.
Right.
But you can create a pretty safe environment. So if you take a look at like a Microsoft Azure, that's the name of their cloud offering, or Amazon Web Services. So again, they have secure facilities. So they're keeping people from being able to walk in. They got cameras and they got everything. So the building is much more secure than your house is going to be. Okay. Well, most houses.
Right.
And so that's one thing. The second thing is they've got a staff of people that just focus on security. All right. The information is encrypted as it sits at rest in that data center. Okay. The other thing is, for example, with Azure, it is actually making 3 copies of the data all the time. Okay. So it's much more resistant to a ransomware attack having 3 copies, right? Versus having 1 copy and then having your USB connected, and all of a sudden it crawls into that and you're dead. So those are just a couple of general kind of thoughts I have related to that.
Interesting. Oh man, my goodness. I'm sorry, I should have my phone on silent. Yikes. Bush League on my part. Sorry about that. Well, this has been really interesting and enlightening. So if I'm a business owner and I'm interested in learning more about CyberNINES and how I can get my business compliant in advance of the DoD in 2023, making it a no joke, have to have your ducks in a row, we're not even going to talk to you sort of thing. How would I get in touch with you in CyberNINES?
Well, CyberNINES.com is the easiest way to do it.
Easy enough. I can totally make a banner out of that. Any other, I will make that banner. Any closing thoughts that you have before we adjourn for the day here?
The basics go a long way. I mean, I can just repeat it again, is just having good backups, having strong passwords, keeping all your systems up to date and patched really is the place to start, regardless of whether it's cyber insurance or even as you get into more complex things, like you want to be a DoD contractor and trying to work down all the requirements that they need from a cybersecurity perspective.
Right on. Good stuff, Scott. Hey, appreciate your time today. I'll ask you to hang on the line for just a minute so I can chat with you afterwards. And folks, you can see CyberNINES scrolling across the bottom there. Check Scott out. I know he's on LinkedIn. You can connect with him there as well. And check out cyberNINES.com. Look, cybersecurity may seem like a frivolous thing. If you're old school, it's not anymore. It is an essential key cornerstone of your business. You have to have your stuff situated. Your cybersecurity needs to be on point, because it's going to seem like a frivolous thing until you're in a situation where you wish that you had it, and then it can devastate your progress. It can shut down your business. It can destroy your personal finances. If you work for a small business, you are vulnerable. If you work for a nonprofit, you have a lot of data on a lot of people, a lot of their personally identifiable information on your donors. You have to have your cybersecurity stuff situated and then some. If you work for a medium-sized business, if you own a medium or small business, if you're a corporate entity, well, if you're a corporate entity, you probably have a team, but y'all need to have it figured out. And if you want to get those DoD contracts, like Scott said, even probably federal and state government contracts and corporate contracts, if you want to get into those supply chain pipelines, folks, you got to have this underway. This is like the new bar, the new standard. Get ahead of it and get it situated. Thanks, everybody. We will look forward to chatting with you same time next week.